Hey, good Wednesday afternoon. Hope you're doing well this week and things are going okay and you're healthy and somewhat settled in spite of the unsettling times we live in. Do a little adjustment here. Wanted to finish up the book of Ruth today, and if you remember when we left off 2 weeks ago, last week we talked about the Goel, that um, Boaz had been identified as a near kindred to redeem the property of the family of Elimelech and to also to redeem Naomi and eventually Ruth. Ruth had gone and made a marriage proposal and a redemption proposal, and then there was a little tension because there was another kinsman who was as close or closer than Boaz and in kinship. So now there's a little tension in chapter 4, what's going to happen, what's going to play out. So there's a gathering at the city gate when business is going to be conducted. So let's just read through the 4th chapter of Ruth. No sooner had Boaz gone up to the gate and sat down there than the next of kin, of whom Boaz spoken, came passing by. So Boaz said, "Come over, friend, sit down here." And he went and sat down. Then Boaz took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, "Sit down here." So they sat down. He then said to the next of kin, "Naomi, who has come back from the country of Moab, is selling the parcel of land that belonged to our kinsman Elimelech. So I thought I would tell you of it and say, buy it in the presence of those sitting here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if you will not, tell me so, that I may know, for there is no one prior to you to redeem it, and I come after you." So he, being the other kinsman, said, "I will redeem it." Then Boaz said, "The day you acquire the field from the hand of Naomi, you are also acquiring Ruth the Moabite, the widow of the dead man, to maintain the dead man's name on his inheritance." At this, the next of kin said, "I cannot redeem it for myself without damaging my own inheritance. Take my right of redemption yourself, for I cannot redeem it." Now this was the custom in former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging. To confirm a transaction, the one took off a sandal and gave it to the other. This was a manner of attesting in Israel. So when the next of kin said to Boaz, "Acquire it for yourself," he took off his sandal. And Boaz said to the elders and all the people, "Today you are witnesses that I have acquired from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech and all that belonged to Chilion and Mahlon. I have acquired Ruth the Moabite, the wife of Mahlon, to be my wife, to maintain the dead man's name on his inheritance, in order that the name of the dead may not be cut off from his kindred and from the gate of his native place. Today you are witnesses." Then all the people who were at the gate, along with the elders, said, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who build up the house of Israel. May you produce children in Ephrathah and bestow on a name in Bethlehem. And through the children the Lord will give you by this woman. May your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah." We'll stop there and then pick up the end of the chapter in a minute. I really do want to speak to what Boaz does. We talked last week about the near kindred redeemer and the Goel, as it is in Hebrew, and the levirate marriage laws, and how that all went, that the brother-in-law of the widow was to take her on and produce children to carry his brother's name, and if he did not do that, then there was shame and disgrace. Obviously, some things had changed a little bit on some of the practice, because this is one, it's not an exact levirate marriage law, but it has similar characteristics. But there is the idea of redemption of property and then taking care of those who were left behind, family members who were left behind, to take care of that property and to take care of them. So Boaz is pretty crafty. He's also kind-hearted. And so, as we mentioned, the law of the levirate marriage comes in. Boaz is willing to take on the responsibility, one, to take care of the land, two, to take care of Naomi, and then finally three, to take care of Ruth and produce children so that Naomi's son's name can continue. And so What Boaz does uh, really is phenomenal. I think what Boaz does and sets up for the future is what the near kindred redeemer is really all about. One which shows mercy, one which shows grace, one which is willing to pay a great cost, even sacrifice for himself for the sake of others. And there's no wonder that Jesus is portrayed as a redeemer for us. And so I think that all comes from how Boaz begins to reinterpret that. And so there was legal proceedings that had to happen. There was affirmation of the contract and inheritance. And so Boaz does the right thing. He doesn't shame the other near kindred redeemer, but acts graciously towards him. But he also, in taking on that land, makes this unspoken and unwritten pledge and vow that he will take care of Naomi, and he will take care of Ruth, and he will take care of any children that would come from that union. And so marriage proposal accepted, wedding is going to be planned, land has been redeemed, stays in Elimelech's family. The son of Naomi's family name will carry on through Ruth. And then we get, at the end of the book of Ruth, we get a genealogy of David that I want to read, and I will speak to that and where it finds its end for us. This is beginning in verse 13. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. They came together, and the Lord made her conceive, and she bore a son. Then the women said to Naomi, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without next of kin, and may his name be renowned in all of Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has borne him." Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her bosom and became his nurse. The women of the neighborhood gave him a name, saying, "A son has been born to Naomi." They named him Obed, and he became the father of Jesse, the father of David. And then there's some more genealogies at the end, the last couple of verses. Just some things to think about, that what happens with Ruth, Naomi, Boaz, and now us through this union and through Boaz's action and Ruth's action and Naomi's action. Remember that Naomi changed her name to Mara, or bitter, because in her words, she had gone out full, that is, went to Moab, married with sons, daughters-in-law, and should come back empty. That is, no husbands, no sons, taking care of Ruth, her daughter-in-law. And now she has been fulfilled again, and her name has become pleasant, or Naomi again. And so not only does Boaz redeem Ruth and take her for a wife, what Boaz does through his action is provide hope for Naomi and to give her a new lease on life, or a new joy. And so what Boaz does as the Redeemer has far-reaching effects that go outside of just he and Ruth and them getting together and being husband and wife. So a son is born to Ruth and Boaz, and the son's name is Obed, and he would be a blessing. He's a blessing to Ruth and to Boaz, a blessing to Naomi. He was a blessing to Bethlehem because this place would become very prominent down the road in his lineage. He'd be a blessing to Israel because of David, and he would be a blessing to the world, for through Obed and David would eventually come the Messiah, Jesus. And so the story of Ruth is certainly a love story, but it's also a redemption story, but it's also a messianic story that really points to the coming of Jesus through this really strange way, that the messianic hope and the messianic lineage is put in place and sustained through a foreign woman, a Moabite, through a mother-in-law who understands customs, and through the graciousness and kindness of a Redeemer named Boaz. And we ultimately are the benefit of that, that Jesus becomes our Goel, our near kindred Redeemer, one who will pay a great cost and a great price to redeem us, to buy us back from the captivity of sin, to redeem us, and as what happens with Naomi, to be a restorer of life and to be a nourisher as we grow older. Jesus would be a blessing now to the world in fulfilling the promise made to Abraham, that through the seed of Abraham, and a promise made that would be made later to David through the seed of David, that an heir would come who would reign forever and who would be the Savior of the world and the Messiah that God spoke of so often in the Old Testament. It's a great story. It's a story of commitment. It's a story of awareness. It's a story of sacrifice. It's a love story. It's a story of love. And so it's more than just a Cinderella fairy tale. This account of Ruth and her commitment to Naomi, and Naomi's commitment to her, and Boaz's commitment to both Naomi and Ruth, really for us are the thread of hope that has been promised by God from the very beginning, after the fall in Genesis 3, through Abraham, through David, and now the promise is fulfilled in Jesus for us, that we have a Redeemer who loves us just as Boaz loved Ruth and Naomi and their families. I hope you've enjoyed the study of Ruth. It's one of my favorite books in the Old Testament. It is so full of grace and so full of mercy and so full of hope. It's a wonderful account to reflect on in times that are like now, where there's tension and where there's uncertainty and where we just need some foundation of hope. I think we can look back at this account of especially what happens with Ruth and Boaz and ultimately Jesus through them to bring us some hope. So, I've enjoyed going through this over the last 8 weeks. I think starting next week, I will do a series of lessons just on some spiritual disciplines and spiritual exercises. We'll look at different types of prayer and study, meditations and those kind of things. And we'll carry that out for a few weeks, and then we'll think about what to do after that. Grace and peace to you all. And we are so grateful for your ongoing support and patience and commitment to the church here as we are going through, just really strange times. And hope to see you on Sunday if you're able to make it. If not, we will live stream again beginning at 9:30. Peace.